haven't started yet, we're in a good place. Thank you all for being here. And we're going to start in about 25 seconds. That's why I'm starting to make myself be a little bit more quiet. So who's ever, if you're not speaking, it would be good to mute though. Why don't you leave your cameras on, panelists, but let's our audio off, except for me, because it is exactly 9 o'clock and my name is Maria Meyer, very privileged and honored to be a part of the team from your Women's Fund, Miami-Dade. We welcome you to what we always say, and we know is true. This is your Women's Fund, and we know attendees that you are here today with great purpose. Great purpose, and I want to thank the very purposeful board of directors who works so hard with us day in and day out to make sure this organization is worthy of your time and your attendance. Thank you, each and all. And we say the one team, because really we exist to leverage resources on behalf of women and girls. And there's so many folks that we work with as gears meshing across the community to be able to do great work. So that's many elected officials. We have all kinds of donors. We have all kinds of volunteers. And within those donors and those special partners, we have pillar sponsors. Our Freedom from Violence pillar is the one we're focusing on today. And that pillar sponsor helps us to do the critical work that includes public awareness campaigns, just like this one that you are seeing today about gun safety. So we thank you, Carrie Meek Foundation, for all you do in so many ways. The very special and important work that we are doing today is supported by Miami-Dade County, very specifically the Carrie Meek Foundation supporting Safer Communities program. This is a collaboration, an important collaboration with the foundation and Miami-Dade County through the county's Office of Neighborhood Safety. Talk about a network and talk about focus to power, because their investment has brought you the incredible work of today. So on we go. This is a quote that I'd like you to read for yourselves. Cannot say it better myself. Thank you, Lucia Davis Rayford, President and CEO of the Carrie Meek Foundation, for all of your work, all of your career, the legacy of Congresswoman Meek, and your current incredible impact on this community. Now, the one and only, my colleague and the leader of this project, Viviana Alvarado Pacheco. Vivi.
Thanks so much, Maria. Good morning, and thank you all for being with us today as we talk about this very important issue for our community. And as we unveil, very excited about this, our new research report, The Invisible Victims, a Gendered Focus on Gun Violence in Miami-Dade County. First, I would like to thank the Carrie Meek Foundation and Miami-Dade County for funding this work. It really could not have been possible without them. I would also like to extend a heartfelt thank you to all of the organizations and individuals involved in this project. You know who you are. Thank you so much. It really could not have been done without you as well. To the survivors who shared their stories with us, we're honored and grateful you entrusted us with your lived experience. Know that we see you. A special thank you to photographer Kathy Shore as well. We are honored to have partnered with her to spotlight her project, SHOT, We the Women's Miami, part of the larger SHOT, We the People. All photos included within the report, the Impact Collaborative imagery, and, which you'll see later, used for the public awareness campaign, are part of this project, where Kathy photographed mothers from Miami who had lost a child to gun violence. You can learn more about her project in the report also. Second, I would like to note that every single person affected by gun violence is a survivor, whether they are shot, witnessed a shooting, or lost a loved one. The use of victims in the title is intentional, as we want to highlight how when conversations around victims and victimization rate arise, women are often left excluded from this narrative. Therefore, with an applied gender focus, we are making sure that they're not only a part of the conversation, but included in the narrative. Now, let's get to it. Within the report, you'll find, oh, go back, Janie, please. One more slide back. Yes, that one. Thanks, Janie. Within the report, you'll find a literature review, a landscape on gun policies, the methodology that we used to do this report, our findings, both quantitative and qualitative data, promising practices and policies, as well as a section on the Women's Fund recommendations informed by the qualitative data collected. Okay, next section, Danny. Now, some quick statistics on gender disparities that are included in the report. Miami-Dade police departments unfortunately lack quality data regarding gun violence victims disaggregated by gender and race and ethnicity. Consistent with national trends, Miami-Dade has increased rates of victimization from 154 per 100,000 population in 2021 to 162 per 100,000 in 2022. And males account for the majority of these gun violence victims. As you can see in the chart, there was also a spike in gun violence incidents and victimization in 2020. And it kind of like went down right afterwards. Next slide, Danny. We are also talking about and highlighting throughout this year-long journey, we've identified the correlates of violence in Miami-Dade to include systemic racism, generational trauma, poverty, limited economic mobility, and a lack of gun regulations. Now, here are some statistics on gender and racial disparities. Black males account for the highest proportion of male victims and remain disproportionately affected by gun violence. Despite the lower numbers compared to male victims, Black female victims are disproportionately affected compared to their white counterparts, with consistently higher victimization rates across all years. There were 1,254 female victims of gun-related incidents in 2022, which the Black victimization rate was 585 per 100,000 population in comparison to white female victimization rate at 63 per 100,000 population. Next slide. Hispanic males and females have seen a substantial increase in victimization rates over the last 5 years. With 70% of Miami-Dade County being Hispanic, this is extremely important to recognize. Also, I'd like to note that the rates for gender and for racial are based on divided by the city of Miami, Miami Beach, Homestead, unincorporated Miami-Dade, and Florida City. For Hispanic calculations, these are based on data provided by the city of Miami, Miami Beach, Homestead, and unincorporated Miami-Dade. If you're really interested in examining the data in depth, know that there is a section with all of this information on Appendix B in the report. Next slide, please. For the challenges that we found and that are really highlighted in the report, there's a lack of understanding about how gun violence affects Hispanic communities due to cultural norms and stigma surrounding gun violence. We've also found that trans people are not visible through the data, as they are often misgendered and misnamed in police reports and media coverage. Gun violence not only results in fatalities and permanent disability for people shot, but it also causes psychological and emotional trauma for victims, loved ones, witnesses of gun violence, and people living near violence, which can often manifest physically as well. Gun violence plays a significant role in maternal mortality. Nationally, homicide is the leading cause of death during pregnancy and the postpartum period. Women are often targets of gun violence due to their gender, and the perpetrators will use guns not only to shoot, but also to abuse, coerce, and control. Next slide, please. Now, that's not all doom and gloom about the challenges, right? There's also resources that we found. However, there seems to be a disconnect between some of the services provided by local governments and the services received by communities across Miami-Dade due to burdensome requirements and a fear of retaliation for engaging with government institution and law enforcement. The community-based violence intervention model is a promising solution for reducing gun violence and supporting communities. Good news is that we already have one running in Miami-Dade. It is the Peacemaker program run by the Circle of Brotherhood. In Miami-Dade, unfortunately, also lacks funding for essential services for survivors of gun violence, such as relocation programs. And that there's also hope, right? Behind a lot of these grassroots movements addressing gun violence in the community are leaders whose grief for their loved ones have ignited their advocacy work and their passion to do anti-gun violence initiatives. Next slide, please. Now, these you'll find more information. Go back to one, Danny, please. You'll find more information on our policy recommendations within the report. But some of the ones that we'd like to highlight are closing the data gaps, requiring law enforcement agencies to track and adequately report gun violence cases by gender, by race, and by ethnicity so that we can have a better understanding of local disparities. Strengthening gender-based violence protections, right? Enforcing and expanding firearm restrictions for domestic abusers to prevent predictable tragedies. Investing in culturally competent services, ensuring that support systems meet the needs of Black, Hispanic, and trans women who face unique barriers to safety. And last but not least, supporting community-based solutions, funding grassroots organizations that provide direct services and advocacy in communities most affected by gun violence. And now, little drum roll, even though you already saw it. Next slide, please, Danny. We have a new public awareness campaign that is going out today. We See You, the Invisible Victims of Gun Violence, where you can learn more about gun violence in our community. You can read the report at womensfundmiami.org/gunsafe. Very excited. Next slide, Danny, so you can see the other version. This is the billboard, and then this is the bus shelter, and it is going live today. Yay! Very exciting stuff. Now, it is my absolute pleasure to quickly, not even introduce, just name the wonderful Abigail Hertz from Everytown. Yes, she is the Director of Trauma-Informed Programs, and she's going to give us a quick overview on some important things to know. Abigail, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Vivi, and thank you to the Women's Fund Miami-Dade for inviting me to be a part of this really important and exciting event this morning. As Vivi mentioned, my name is Abigail Hurst. I'm the Director of Trauma-Informed Programs at Everytown for Gun Safety. We are the nation's largest gun violence prevention organization with nearly 11 million supporters, including survivors, students, moms, mayors, gun owners, faith leaders, educators, artists, and more. We also like to say in our work that volunteers and our Moms Demand Action volunteers in particular are everywhere. And I know today that holds true because there are several of you who are volunteers attending today's call. So I want to also acknowledge your presence and your advocacy. Throughout my career, I've worked with people who have experienced trauma of some kind with deep roots in the gender-based violence movement and the gun violence prevention movement. My passion for working with survivors of violence came from my own lived experiences, and I know that's something that's shared by many of our panelists today. My passion for working with survivors is representing a long line of strong and resilient women in my family tree who are survivors of violence and abuse. These women have provided me with a blueprint for the post-traumatic growth that I would see again and again throughout my career working with survivors. My role is unique as I seek to support our staff and our survivors and our volunteers who do this work amid exposure to the trauma of gun violence. I also have the privilege of working with our stellar research team on projects that help us better understand how gun violence trauma shapes the experiences of survivors and communities and of our nation. The trauma of gun violence doesn't end when the shooting stops. It ripples out from each incident, touching the lives of family members, loved ones, first responders, coworkers, and community members. The pain of each incident of gun violence isn't contained to one neighborhood or geographic location. In fact, we know that the pain can be felt across our nation through relationships and through shared identities. So for my brief remarks today, I want to focus on the impact of gun violence and trauma on women and girls. Nearly 6 million women in the US report having a gun used on them by an intimate partner. We know guns exacerbate the power and control dynamic used by abusers to inflict emotional abuse and exert coercive control over their victims, even if the abuser doesn't pull the trigger. Every month, 76 women in the US are shot and killed by an intimate partner. People of all races and ethnicities face intimate partner violence, but the burden of this crisis is not felt equally. American Indian, Alaska Native, and Black women experience the highest rates of intimate partner gun violence and gun homicide. More than 3 in 10 Latina homicides are committed by an intimate partner, and a firearm is used in more than half of these deaths. On average, more than once per day in the US, a tragedy occurs where a perpetrator kills an intimate partner and then dies by suicide themselves. Of these incidents, 93% involve a gun and 95% have women killed by their male partner. Easy access to a gun is often at the heart of intimate partner homicide and suicide. And in these cases of intimate partner homicide, suicide, access to a gun can put multiple lives at risk. We know the stigma surrounding domestic violence and the role of firearms in perpetrating that violence means that too often we don't talk about or recognize its full toll. Stigma affects how survivors interact with systems designed to support and protect them, and it also impacts the healing process after abuse. However, I am constantly reminded that perhaps the most effective method in shattering stigma is lifting up a survivor with a story to tell. I will leave you with 3 things that survivors of gun violence have taught me throughout my career and throughout my life. First, community creates healing, and healing creates community. I think of the bereaved mothers who have diligently created spaces to bear witness to each other's pain and have reached across rooms and have reached across communities to say to other bereaved mothers, I'm sorry you are on this journey with us, but you don't have to walk this path alone. Second, the fight to save lives is always worth it. From January 2013 to today, survivors of gun-related intimate partner violence and volunteers with Moms Demand Action and Students Demand Action, along with incredible partner organizations, have successfully advocated in 31 states and Washington, D.C. to help pass 83 bills that help keep guns away from abusive partners. And each of these new laws create the opportunity to save lives. Finally, the last thing I'll leave you with is hope is what sustains us. It is possible to break generational chains of violence and abuse. It is possible to prevent gun violence before it shatters families and communities. And it's because of this possibility that we must always hold on to hope that our collective work will create life-saving legacy. In closing, this work requires a holistic approach that includes continuous engagement with collaboration with local, state, and national stakeholders. And that is represented, I think, today on today's call too. We have to ensure that our strategies have an impact. This work also requires honoring the lived experiences and the expertise of survivors so that our efforts are not only survivor informed, but also effective and compassionate. And that's why I'm so proud to be with all of you today and witness the launch of the Women's Fund Miami-Dade's report that centers the experiences of survivors and challenges us all to continue in this fight to save lives. Thank you so much for this chance to be here today.
We thank you. We thank each and every one of you who are on the screen, who are in the audience today. There's so much power. Some of you will have missed the first few minutes where we gave a lot of credit and information. Please, please, please go and see the recording, which started at 9 o'clock sharp with very important information. It will be on our website within 24 hours and on our YouTube. Please participate fully. Answer the polls, the 3 of them that we'll be conducting. Please post your questions for the panel using the Q&A icon. I will try and get them to answer as many as possible at the end of the presentations. And please, I know the exit survey seems like one more thing to do, but it'll only take you under a minute, and we really do use it. So thank you for participating. Thank you for being here. And thank you for using that recording on and on and on and on, along with all of the rich information that's being shared today. Least of all, and the report. The report has so much rich information. So on we go. Thank you, thank you, thank you, our incredible panelists. I'm going to ask you to do the introduction, the self-introductions in 2 minutes of less. Romania, tell us why you're here today. Please bring us your leadership. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Romania Dukes, the founder of Mothers Fighting for Justice. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, my fight started July 21st, 2014, after the loss of my son, DeMichael Dukes, who was shot and killed by a stray bullet. Some of you all know my story. Some of you know half of my story. Some of you don't know my story at all. Because I'm always out there in the community. But my son was shot by a stray bullet right in front of me, his brothers and sisters and friends. Over 60 to 80 people was outside playing, doing whatever they do outside. We was visiting my cousin. She stayed upstairs, and my son, my daughter, his friends, and my cousin, I was standing by her door, and they were sitting down in chairs because my son was an inspired rapper. He was making music. One of the kids in that area had beef with another young individual and just came randomly shooting. So everybody just got up to run. And by the time my son was trying to get out the chair, the stray bullet had got him in the chest. After the smoke cleared, I seen my son just laying on the ground with one shoe on. Nobody was there. Everybody was gone. It was just me and him and my daughter. My other kids was younger at the time, like 11 years old. My grandkids was between 4 and 5 that was out there. And I'm just, you got to excuse me. So I'm just calling out for help, saying that he's gonna be all right, you're gonna be all right. And mind you, this all happened right behind the police station, Miami-Dade Police Station. There's a health clinic like exactly 1 minute away from there. And it seemed like everything was taking a long time to get to my child. I had people coming away from Florida City to Homestead before medic got to my child, but not placing blame on no one. At the time, I didn't even know it was multiple gunshot victims at that time. And to get in buildings is just a one-way in and a one-way out. So they was getting most of the calls on the other side of the building. So by the time they got to my son passed away. My son died in my arms. And from there, I didn't know what to do, where to go. There was no trauma centers at that time for me or for mothers like myself. And I think by a couple of months or a year later, I went to some groups that was talking about gun violence with, community leaders, other moms who lost kids to gun violence. And must I say the rest is history. I didn't stop. I didn't quit. I just formed Mothers Fighting for Justice and just try to be that support system for other moms like myself. With this fight, I met some amazing mothers, MJ, right being one of them, some of the Parkland families. I just started just fighting and going to New York, talking about gun violence. It done took me a long way. And I just want some of you all to know that pain come in many shapes and forms. A lot of people see me out there, I'm always boots on the ground. They're like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how I do it either, but all I know that I do is hide my pain. And pain come in a lot of forms and fashion. I deal with it every day, and there's no expiration date on our pain. My son's birthday was just 3 days ago, and I was fighting myself to see how can I get on here and face this reality that I've been hiding for 10 years. But this is the perfect place for me to finally open up, tell the full story, and let people know why I'm always in the community, partnership with so many beautiful organizations, just like you all, the Women's Foundation, Carrie, Meek Foundation, Circle of Brotherhood, Together for Children, Moms Demand Action in every town, Good Tars Over Guns. When I say I wear so many hats, I wear a lot of hats.
And we are not alone, Romania. Thank you so much for your leadership and for your inspiration. And I know you've got a lot of commitment here today. We thank you. We thank you. We thank you. We'll be back to you shortly. In 2 minutes or less, Sammy, can you please introduce yourself in context of today?
Of course. Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Samantha Barrios. I am Giffords, Florida State Director. And more than a decade ago, after former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords being shot in the tragic events of Sandy Hook, Gabby decided to dedicate her life to saving lives from gun violence. And that's how Giffords was founded. Before joining Giffords, nearly 3 years ago, I served as a local lead for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America here in Miami, an experience that I will always have in my heart, as well as my fellow moms who I know they're joining here today. And gun safety has been a long passion of mine. And I firmly believe that discussions like the ones that we're having today are essential for advocating for women and girls' rights, especially in understanding the critical intersection between gender-based violence and gun violence. So I'm just humbled to be part of this conversation with experts from every town for gun safety, survivors like Romania, representing Mothers Fighting for Justice, and Shamika from the Circle of Brotherhood, all organizations that we have worked close to trying to make Florida and our city safer from gun violence. And I'm just looking forward to a meaningful conversation, action-driven conversation. Lastly, I just wanted to thank the Women's Fund for giving us the opportunity to be part of this important discussion, and we're excited to see the launch of the report. Thank you so much. Gracias.
And thank you. And Shamika, thank you so much.
Hello, everyone.
Sophie.
My name is Shamika, and I'm honored to be here. I first want to offer my condolences to my sister, Romania, and all the other victims to gun violence and the mothers who have lost children to gun violence. I can't even imagine the pain that you are bearing every day, but I respect you all for showing up every day and continuing to fight to save the lives of our other children. So much respect and love to you all. But I'm here today because I have the honors to serve with a nonprofit organization called the Circle of Brotherhood. Well, I hold a dual position as a peacemaker and also the coordinator for an initiative, a safe space that was started from the Circle of Brotherhood called the Sisterhood Wellness Circle. And I'm passionate about working in the community because as a peacemaker, every day we go out boots on the ground into inner city communities that's often overlooked and misjudged, where we find victims who have been impacted by gun violence. And we connect them to resources like the Sisterhood Wellness Circle, where they have a safe space to vent out whatever trauma it is that they're going through and experiencing within a community and offer resources to support them. So I'm honored to be here to be a part of such an important conversation. And I thank the Women's Fund for putting together this important discussion that's well needed. Thank you.
We thank the county and the Carrie Meek Foundation for allowing us the incredible luxury of this year of learning from you all. Romania, can you focus us for just like 2 minutes on what we need to know with your lived experience?
In my living experience in the community, it's always about communicating with each other, building relationships. Every day we have gun violence in my community. I'm way down south. And it's always seemed like the South has to take care of the South. That we all joining forces together to help each other because gun violence is Miami area and the South area. And I'm always in Miami. We just need to pull together, meet in the middle, and support each other in both communities. Some of the gun violence started because all of these kids are not housed. They mom are homeless, they grandma are homeless, but not homeless in the street, but homeless within living with a sister or auntie. So when it's time for those kids to go to school, they're not able to get in school because the mom don't have a lease in her name, a water bill or a light bill in their name. So that leaves these kids running in the streets, and our system haven't caught up with that situation yet. So that's where all us organizations need to get together and form a way to get these kids back in school, help these families get their own housing situated.
So powerful. Thank you very, very much for that perspective. Samantha.
I am so sorry. Okay, so I just want to quickly today touch base on some things that we have observed, not only through the report, but also on our report that we did in Giffords last year on Latino Voices. So gun violence is a crisis that disproportionately affects Hispanic women and girls of color, yet their stories are unheard, as we saw. Cultural stigmas are easy, and the easy access to guns, mental health, and systematic inequities create a cycle of silence. So we cannot address gun violence without addressing its impact in the Hispanic community. And the numbers tell a devastating story. But behind every statistic, there's a mother, there's a daughter, there's a sister or friend whose lives has been changed forever. So to do that, we will start by sharing a national perspective, which demonstrate there's a rising crisis for Hispanic women and girls. Today, I will speak about some of those numbers, and to see that the gun violence rate among Latina women has surged by 25% since 2019. Gun homicides increased by 30% and gun suicides by 25%. And this is a disproportionate impact in young Latinas. Hispanic survivors are often suffering in silence because of the cultural norms, which discourage families from speaking about trauma and seeking mental health and support. We also see that Hispanic youth are not just witness, they are victims. More than 65% of Latina girls under more than 65 Latina girls under 18 are killed by gun violence every year, making up to 10% of all gun deaths in Latinas. And inmate partner violence is also a deadly factor. Every year we see more than 80 Latina women being killed by their inmate partners with a gun. And what happens in Florida? Well, Florida is a state in crisis for Latina women and girls. I'm sorry, that's the next slide. Yeah. Gun violence among Latina has increased at alarming rate. 70 Latina girls and women get killed by guns in Florida and every year, and about 68% of Latina homicides involve firearms. We also know that gun suicides in Latinas has increased and has jumped to almost 33% since 2019. And for Latinas in Florida are more likely to be killed by a gun than white women. Hispanic women face 13% higher gun homicide rate compared to non-Hispanic white women. It is just so sad to see that we're seeing the futures of young Latinas and girls being stolen by gun violence. Since 2019, 25 Latina girls under 18 have been killed in Florida. But what about Miami-Dade County? That's the next slide. Well, we also have a crisis here in the Hispanic community. Gun violence is hitting Miami-Dade Hispanic community really hard. From 2019 to 2023, 97 Latina women and girls were killed by gun violence in Miami-Dade. And 71% of the deaths were homicides, and 26% of them were suicides. Latinas in Miami-Dade face a greater risk of gun violence than Hispanic women in other major cities. One statistic that mind blow me was that in Miami-Dade, Latinas are 60% higher, the gun death rate in Latinas in Miami-Dade is 60% higher than in Los Angeles County and 87% higher than San Diego. That is just so sad. The true scope of the problem is just hidden. Hispanic victims are often mischaracterized in data collection, as Vivi just mentioned, making it difficult to capture a full impact on gun violence in Miami-Dade Hispanic women. But I don't want to leave before we speak a bit about some of the findings that we got on our report as well, which is the Latino Voices. And we basically found that Latina women in Florida overall express a profound anxiety about gun violence, particularly regarding children and their safety in school. A mother just manifested when we were interviewing her that she would fear leaving her children at school, but then she would have the same fear as a teacher when she would go back to her students. And that's just to prove that Latinas have a ton of pressure as caregivers in their daily lives, as many other women of color. It also showed that the unpredictable nature of gun violence exacerbates these fears. Latina women feel that the easy access to firearms in Florida contributes to a sense of constant vigilance and concern for their family's well-being. In our report, Latina women in Florida, in their desire to reduce the threat of gun violence, were vocal about the need of comprehensive gun laws, more information in Spanish for elected officials to speak more about the issue and for themselves, and the support of policies such as universal background checks, waiting periods, and viewing essential steps to protect their families. Last year, we found that Latina women are eager to lead the fight on gun safety reforms that saves lives, and to harness their passion and impact, we must create a space where they feel included, valued, and heard, because their voices are just not important. They are essential to driving meaningful change. And we know that is the case for all women of color from Miami-Dade. So just want to leave with saying that women of color should not have to live in the fear of violence, of gun violence, neither at home, in schools, or in their own communities. This issue is solvable, but we only if we work together like we are today. We must recognize the unique challenges that communities of colors and survivors are facing and take bold action to protect our families. Supporting gun safety laws is one that we always advocate for, because we know they save lives. So let's turn awareness into action and fight for a future where women and girls of color can live safely from and without fear. Thank you so much. Gracias.
Thank you. Let's do Shamika. Let's hear from you. Can you give us 2 minutes of what you're seeing?
Hi guys. So what I'm seeing in my role as a peacemaker, when we go out into these inner city communities, we're seeing increased risk of exposure to gun violence because they're more accessible with the laws that have been changed and within Florida. And what I'm seeing within the Sisterhood Wellness Circle from our foster care girls who have been impacted by violence in ways that we can't even imagine is that most of these girls are starting to be sex trafficked because now they're using the guns as intimidation tools. Because it's one thing to not to show up and to make threats and intimidate, but it's another to show up with a weapon of powerful force that just automatically allows some of our youth to just follow suit with whatever instructions that this perpetrator is giving them or telling them to do. So a lot of our youth are victims of sex trafficking, victims of gun violence themselves. They're finding themselves being caught up and feeling pressured because they're feeling unsafe. So they're feeling pressured to pick up a gun, to fit in along with their friends, to protect their loved ones at home, because the children are often in single parent households. So they're often feeling like the teenage boys are feeling like they have to step up and play roles in lives. And even our young girls are unfortunately playing the roles of stepping up and protecting the house, protecting their mom, protecting their grandma from the violence that's taking place around them. They're becoming immune to it. They create a sense of normalcy for violence and trauma that they're facing. They're talking about it as if they're talking about a TV show that everyone is watching. So it's just a lot of different things that our youth are experiencing. I think just with the laws that's being changed, it's just making it more at risk for our youth to be exposed to these weapons and have access to them.
We have incredible people here with us today. Yvonne Mesa, who's also on our board and works for Miami-Dade County, leads and founded the Miami-Dade Human Trafficking Task Force. Yvonne, let's make sure Shamika gets invited to join the task force, as well as Betsy Cruz, who coordinates the South Florida Human Trafficking Task Force. Officer Cruz, thank you for being here and extending that invitation to Shamika as well. Everybody here, please participate in the polls. And now we're going to ask you each panelist to, in 2 minutes or less, give us your calls to action, because then we're going to bring everybody together for Q&A. This is amazing. Please, Romania, tell us your calls to action. Romania, you're good with your unmuting there?
Yes,
There you go. Hi.
My apology. You know, I'm trying to work the laptop and the cell phone. I'm sorry. My apologies. I think our call to action should be all us working together from both communities, the North and the South. One, these kids see us when we come. The families see us when they come. And some, they don't feel comfortable enough to even talk to us, to give us the information if they need help or resources. So we need to get to know our community better. Because some of them don't went to school with us and everything like that. But if we just join forces to work together to understand what they're going through, then they'll be able to share more information with us. If that makes sense.
It
But
makes
that
so much sense. Thank you so very much. That's terrific. Samantha, what can we do? What are your calls to action?
Sure. So we encourage everyone to advocate for gun safety policies to prevent gun violence in the Hispanic community and communities of color. This includes stronger gun laws, community-based violence prevention programs, and better resources for survivors. We also encourage everyone to break the stigma. Let's start having this conversation at our kitchen tables, with our friends, in parties. Let's start talking about how women and girls are being affected by the issue and how we have to get involved to make this better. We also need to demand better data collection and bilingual information. Without clear data on how gun violence affects Hispanic women and women of color, we cannot create an effective solutions. So we have to demand it. And last, I would like everyone to amplify the voices of survivors. Hispanic survivors and survivors of color overall should not feel silenced by the fear of stigma. We need to create safer spaces where they feel empowered to speak their stories, and their passion are the strongest one I have seen in the movement. So let's elevate their voices. That's the solutions that we're proposing today.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Shamika.
My call to action will be to fund programs like the Circle of Brotherhood Peacemakers program, who's put in the boots on the ground to go out in the communities to look for the victims who have been affected by gun violence in the communities that has been deeply impacted by gun violence every day. Because a lot of times people like to, we like to be in the image that gun violence has stopped, but even in the midst of lives have been lost, there's still children that's seeing children going to school at the park with guns that's being affected. So I say put more funding into organizations like the Peacemaker program and the Sisterhood Wellness Circle, which provides a safe space for our girls to vent out and talk about the things that they're experiencing, where they don't feel judged, they don't feel pressured. It's just a welcoming and a safe space for community to provide healing to each other.
I'm going to ask Abigail and Viviana to please join us now for the Q&A. Inviting everyone to please, unfortunately, if you could put, I see somebody's got their hands raised. What we ask you to do is if you could please write it in the Q&A tab or even here in the chat, that would be terrific. It's smoother that way. So I know it's imperfect. We'd love to all be together in person, but here we go. The first question, Thema Campbell is an incredible leader here, Girl Power Inc. Many of you will know her as well. And she was saying that she'd love to continue this conversation. I think, one of the calls to action that we can do, Viv, I'm going to ask you first. Can you talk about the different ways that this just starts today, right? There's been an incredible amount of work that's been done all year long by the many grantees, incredible grantees of the Carrie Meek Foundation grant and the county's focus and fueling of this work. Can you give some good shares of where we go from here?
Yes. So I think as a researcher that I am, I will say that one of the most important ones that I see is really making sure that we're pushing for this information and the data to be disaggregated by gender, by race, by ethnicity, because we're missing a lot. As I mentioned, there were only 5 police departments that provided us with their information. And so we're missing a huge part of the county, right? So there's still a bigger picture to be led. And I think with all of us collectively stating, hey, we need more data, and we need more accurate data, it really keeps the conversation going. Making sure that we're talking about the community solutions. They are there, they exist. I always just want to shout out the Peacemakers, because it is a community-based violence prevention program that is known to have good traction all over the states where it's been implemented, and we have one here. So let's continue to fund these initiatives. Let's continue to have these conversations, share the report, push for more data. If you want to have a conversation with me on how we can do it and work together, please make sure to reach out. I will put my email in the chat. And I think this, especially the report, is just the first step in us making sure that we have and we continue to gather the research and the data that is needed to move and find solutions.
Samantha, our report has been done in English, right? We have. Do you have a lot of materials that are created in Spanish, and can you share those? I mean, I know a lot of people take a lot of the work that we do and throw it into Google Translate, and that's not a bad start. So, please don't not use our work. Whatever language there are many languages it could be translated into, but Samantha, really specific tools in the Spanish language. And then I'm going to ask if anybody has resources in the Creole language as well, if anybody can hop in after Samantha.
Absolutely. Yeah. We do have a hub in Spanish. It's called Giffords en Español, which I will share the link in a minute. But we do have a link with statistics, information on gun violence in Spanish in our webpage. We also had a report in which we interviewed several Hispanic Floridians here in the state, and it's in English and Spanish. We launched that last year, so I'm going to share that link over here too. But if you ever need statistics, any type of information in Spanish, we have a beautiful webpage that has all that information in Spanish. We also try to do all of our communications in English and Spanish. We know it's important in South Florida to be communicating, and in Central Florida to be communicating with people in both languages. This is an issue that it's in top of the minds of Latinos and Hispanics, so that's why we do that.
Abigail, can I ask you, there's so many languages that are that every town reaches. How do you work with resources, sharing resources in other languages?
I mean, we have access, we have Spanish translated resources on our website as well. I can drop some links in the chat. We can also direct people to hotlines that are able to be accessed in a variety of languages. I know the SAMHSA disaster relief hotline has, I think, over 200 different languages that people can call in to get resources. So oftentimes we're directing people to those trusted resources that automatically have those different languages represented within. So I'll drop some of those.
I don't know what SAMHSA is.
Oh, Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration has a disaster relief.
I heard it, but I couldn't remember.
Thank you for asking me so that I can clarify too. But I'll make sure to put all of those links in the chat if people need to get those resources and support.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Vivi, Sarah Suarez has a really specific question for you. Viviana, is the gun violence victim data examining homicides and aggravated assaults?
We think so. That's part of the problem also, that they're not identified very clearly, but it should be including all victims, whether it's aggravated assault, it is homicides, it is robberies, right? Any type of victim or any type of incident that involves a gun.
Romania and Shamika, one of the things that Viviana and the whole team found most, and we've talked about this with our amazing colleagues, many who work in the county and the Meek Foundation and others, is that there are resources that have grown out of real need. So you're both filling gaps and needs, right? There's not really a centralized way for everybody to find you. In fact, I'm going to ask the team to put the link to our gun violence page and the awareness page in the chat, because there are resources there, and you can find you can find a lot of what we're talking about today. But we encourage, we don't want to hold it here. You know, we're really always looking for the amazing county and the mayor's no wrong door policy. We're looking for more and more ways for people to be able to find you. Can you tell us, Romania, you first, and then Shamika, how people find you and come to you and who you're serving?
They contact me off social media, Facebook, Instagram, which is my Facebook is my name, and the Instagram is MFFJ411. And also by the word of mouth, some people get referrals from Circle of Brotherhood, the Sisterhood, Trayvon Martin Foundation, the Gifford Foundation. So a lot of people just come to me from referrals, like Be Strong, like through all the organizations. And that's how they could contact me, or just call me by my phone number, 850-901-1553, or email will go out to everybody, or I will post something about my beautiful roundtables that I have each month. I have one coming up. I would love for all you to join. I have Sheriff Rosie gonna join us this time. So, and they've been so amazing that it already went to CNN. So kudos.
Amazing. So I'm going to ask our team to grab all of your information, as much as we do your socials and everything, and put it here in the chat for people to know. And in one of the polls, I hope you answered if you want to be in contact with any of the speakers from today. our amazing team, Daniela, and all will put you in direct contact with these leaders. Shamika.
Yes, so you guys can find me at the Circle of Brotherhood headquarters located in Liberty City Community at 5120 Northwest 24th Avenue. We're right there. We're right in the center heart of Liberty City. I also give out my cell phone number to those who want to connect to make impactful work, because like I said, this work is I'm very passionate about the work that I do. So I give out my number, and I will leave my number in the chat so that anybody would like to connect with me. I'm excited. I'm always willing to bring along partners for the Sisterhood Wellness Circle, because we work with our foster care youth and the girls in our inner city community and women that's just looking for change and healing.
We want to stick with you, Shamika, because as you know, the Women's Fund and many of our extended network are really involved in the human trafficking, both labor and sex trafficking prevention. It's one of the first places that we learned how much making people invisible is incredibly dangerous, right? So when you don't shine a light on what's happening with both labor and sex trafficking, people get away with all kinds of stuff, right? You had mentioned in our pre-interview that you were seeing a lot of coercion and people being forced into, young women being forced into sex trafficking. And those are our local kids, right? Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you're seeing that, where it's coming from, and point us in the direction of need? Because there are a lot of powerful people listening in today.
Mm-hmm. So I work with our youth that's making a lot of different transitions in life, that's high risk, at risk. Some of them are in foster care networks. Most of them are in like group homes. Some of them are staying with family and friends because the household that they're living in, it's unsafe. So what they do is they go and live with their friends or whoever else their friends are living with. And most of the time I've seen a story where this young lady moved into a home with her friend who was living with a guy who she wasn't even related to, but they were calling him that he was a dad figure, like he was dad. So this older gentleman who was in his late 30s was now the owner of now 3 minor girls in the inner city community, and he has control and power over them, and he's getting them to bring on more and more friends into the home, telling them that he's like their safe space to buy them things that they need. So he's supplying them with all their need, everything that they need. And he has a gun in the home to let them know to tell them that he's protecting them, but it's also a sense of control because it puts fear in them to then comply with whatever request that he's making as well. So when they come into spaces like the Sisterhood Wellness Circle and they're sharing these type of stories with us, we're just always looking for ways to support them and to get them how to help navigate them out of the situation, but also safely, because there's a lot of risk factors involved when you're working with people with high profiles and doing crimes of such. So we just try to work strategic and just connect with the right resources, because the resources can be there, but if our youth don't know about them or they don't trust the resources, then it kind of leaves them in a blind spot. And oftentimes I like to do a really warm handoff to these youth to resources, because often when you connect them to resources and they have simple requests of documents like an ID, and our youth may not have the ID because the important things that they need is in the household that they ran away from, and now they're not able to connect with the resources that can actually benefit and help them because they don't have a simple ID. So I like to just hold their hand and guide them through each step to make sure that they're again properly serviced with everything that they need and deserve.
Romania and Samantha, just a nod of the heads. Have either of you, yes or no, seen coercion and sort of towards trafficking?
Yes, just want to piggyback off what Shamika was saying. And in my community, we see young girls, going with older men, and some of that be sex trafficking. Some community people just look at it, oh, she's grown, she's hot, but they don't understand that she's being sex trafficking. And it's not only just girls, it's boys also. So let's not forget that boys can be sex trafficking too. And it's just certain little things that we have to look for. Some they might get aggressive and say, no, this is my niece, this is my daughter, or whatever. But we just got to find those signs and then go from there. That's what's been going on in my community.
Samantha.
Yeah, just wanted to acknowledge that we know that this is a problem in Miami, and we also understand there's a intersection between sex trafficking and gun violence. So these are things that we have to keep a close look into and try to find solutions for it.
This goes on from here. We are connected to so many resources. There are so many amazing people in this town. The Miami-Dade Coordinated Victims Assistance Center, and many, 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 many other resources here. The hardest thing is to find them. We're all exactly no degrees of separation now from these resources, and we do hope that we'll all stay very much connected and accelerate the support and the visibility of women and girls vis-a-vis gun violence in this community. Betsy Cruz, who's an officer of the Miami-Dade Police Department and is the coordinator for the South Florida Human Trafficking Task Force, has given her direct contact right there in the chat. Please, let's all feel that stronger together is something that we can leverage better and faster every day. Thank you for this incredible convening, Viviana. I know it's been an amazing year for us. We will never stop. We thank the Carrie Meek Foundation and the county for giving this focus and this power, because this community deserves it. Please stay with us. The Women's Fund convenes monthly, but we're always here. We have lots of resources. You can re-see and leverage them from our website. Please join us every month for these impact collaboratives. There's a great one on human trafficking on the website, by the way, that a lot of you can see. Our next impact collaborative is actually going to be our signature event, The Power of the Purse, which is pretty much sold out. So if you're trying to get tickets, we're going to ask you to please email Maria T at womenfunmiami.org, because we're starting with the waiting list. You can join Daniela, who organizes these impact collaboratives. She also organizes our volunteer impact corps, so impact agents. So please know that this is your Women's Fund, and we thank you, whether you're on screen or off, for being with us today. Panelists, thank you. Thank you. Please, everybody unmute. I wish we were I'm such a hugger, and I would be invading everybody's personal space very obnoxiously right now if we were together. And that
well. This was amazing. Thank you, Women's Fund, for putting together this amazing, this impactful. I got a lot from being a part of this, and I just want to just offer my gratitude to each of one of you. Viv, thank you. You're doing an awesome job with the research.
Thank you so much, Shamika. We love you.
I can only see myself. Remove that spotlight. I don't want to see myself. I want to see you all. Hi, there we are. Hi. Viv, do you want to say anything as we say goodbye?
I'm just so touched. I think we've been in conversations with all of you for a really long time now, and to see this come to fruition is really impactful. It's really heartfelt, and I'm just so honored to have met all of you, first of all, and second, to have you support us and be a part of this work. It's just really, truly amazing. We need to surround ourselves with these types of doers, go-getters, so we can really make a change, not only in our community, but in the entire nation, right? So I'm so thankful. I'm really, really thankful. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. I'm just so happy.
I just want to say thank you all. This was my therapy session this morning, so thank you so much. I've been holding a lot in since my son's birthday 3 days ago. So this kind of helped me ease a little bit. So thank you all so much for having me. Thanks to all the audience that's on here, and much love, peace, and blessing to each and every one of y'all. Stay safe.
You too, Romania. Thank you so much. I'm like on the verge of tears here.
Me too.
Thank you.
I'm just going to jump in. First of all, I want to thank again the Women's Fund for bringing us all together. Vivi and team, you did an amazing job with the report. We can only imagine how much work it's behind the scenes. So thank you for that. Romania, I'm sending you a big hug. We love you. Thanks to the Circle of Brotherhood who keep doing amazing work and saving lives every single day. And for Everytown for being such a light in so many ways, for survivors, for moms, for grassroots, for getting gun safety champions elected. Thank you, everyone. Myra, you are a star. Thank you, everyone. And I hope this is just the beginning. Let's keep working together.
Thank you so
That's
much.
a promise.